Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the first in a series of videos I'm going to make about Anna Karenina. So, a wee bit of history. I read this at uni in 93 or 94 for the first time. Didn't get on with it at all. I wasn't ready for literature at that time. But I was doing a degree in language and literature, and so I did. That's what I had to do. So I read it in first year. The time I got to the end of my degree, which was a 5-year degree, I was much more comfortable with 19th century Russian literature. But in first year, So I tried to read it again about 5 years ago and DNF'd it. Not sure why, but I did. This year I've started again and I'm having a great time. I'm so ready for it. It fits in very well with what I'm doing here on the channel, with where I am in my life, the way I'm reading more classic literature. It just feels like a good time for me. So that's the kind of preamble out of the way. It came up as a read-along that's been run on a Substack by Henry Elliott, and he's reading it in publication order. So the way that 19th century novels in general were published in those days were that they would be serialised in journals. Dickens was the same, and Tolstoy's Anna Karenina was published in the Russian Messenger journal. So Henry's leading the read-along, where we read the chunks that, as they came out, as they were published. So I'm following that, but what I'm going to do for these videos is I'm going to do it by parts. So the novel is made up of 8 parts, so you can look out for 8 videos. This is the first one, obviously. And what I've been doing is I've started a new method of note-taking. This beautiful Leuchtturm 1917 notebook. But I didn't start doing that until chapter 24, so I've kind of missed the first few chapters of note-taking, but I also do Notion note-taking, where I scan or I highlight bits in the Kindle version, which then goes into my Notion. And I've also been highlighting in the book and annotating the book, because I want to do more of that. Perhaps one day I'll even start sticking in those colourful tabs that booktubers seem to love so well. So at the moment, I've got my handwritten notes and we'll go through part 1. So here we go. Anna Karenina comes to Moscow on the train. She's going to meet her brother, Steva Oblonsky. And he's in the doghouse because he's been unfaithful to his wife. So Anna and Steva are siblings. Steva's wife, Dolly, is the woman scorned. And Anna's come, I think, to reconcile them if she can. So we start off with perhaps one of the most well-known opening lines in 19th century literature. All happy families are alike. All unhappy families are unhappy in their own way. So this is referring to Steva and Dolly's family. They're unhappy because of his infidelity. Of course, I should have said at the beginning of this, it's going to be spoiler city. So if you haven't read the book, or you want to read along with me, then read up to the end of part 1. Then watch the video, because I'm going to go through the plot and the characters up to the end of part 1. So no spoilers have been given away so far. We've got the opening line, we've got the families, we've got Anna Karenina coming into Moscow from St. Petersburg. 1, 2, 3... On the train, she travels with an old lady who just happens to be Vronsky's mother, Count Vronsky. So he becomes an important character, but we don't meet him just yet. We follow Anna and Mrs. Vronsky in the train, or Mrs. Vronskaya in the train. And they get on like a house on fire, and they share anecdotes of their children, because Anna's married. Anna has a child, Seryoja. He's a young boy, and they get on like a house on fire. So Anna arrives at the station and her brother comes to meet her. But then there's something that happens at the station. There's a death. A station worker is killed under a train at the station through negligence or carelessness. We don't know what. Vronsky has come to the station to meet his mother. So this is the first time that Anna and Vronsky set eyes on each other, and there's a spark. Electrical sparks, emotional sparks. But not much is made of it. Vronsky somewhat magnanimously, or maybe insensitively, offers money to the station master to pass on to the family of the deceased. Whether this is a gesture just to show off to Anna, we don't know. And that's their first meeting at the station. One of the highlights I've made here when we're discussing Oblonsky, it says, he was on familiar terms with everyone with whom he drank champagne, and he drank champagne with everyone. That line stood out to me as being quite indicative of who Oblonsky is. Everyone likes him. He's very likeable. He's very gregarious. He has a good job. He's well-to-do. And he just couldn't help himself from sleeping with the children's nanny. You know. So we get the reconciliation scene. Anna gets to the house and she talks with her sister-in-law. And I think persuades him to forgive and forget. So that's what goes down there. What other notes do I have? Yeah, I'll go to the handwritten notes because these are when I started anticipating making this. So another character that we meet is Konstantin Levin. He's one of the main characters. He's a farmer, he's a landowner, and he's a character that's based on Tolstoy himself, a sort of autobiographical character. And Levin has sympathies with the peasants. He has ideas of land owning and farming that are not in keeping with the times. He's a progressive. And he comes for dinner with Oblonsky. They're friends. They go back a long way. And he comes for dinner and there's a scene where Oblonsky's explaining his family situation to Levin, and Levin says to him, "Don't steal rolls." In other words, don't be unfaithful to your wife. And that was the title of the essay that I wrote when I was a student back in first year. Don't steal rolls, Levin to Oblonsky. In what sense is this the true meaning of Anna Karenina? So that was the essay I answered, and I got 58 marks, which was reasonable. particularly given that I was right at the beginning of my education. So, yeah, that's Levin's message to Oblonsky. So Levin's very much a traditional, a conservative progressive. He believes in monogamy. He believes in true love. He believes in honour and all of those virtues. Whereas Oblonsky's very laissez-faire, let's just follow our impulses and deal with the consequences as they arise. Which is not to say that he's not unhappy. He's very unhappy because his wife has basically kicked him out. That makes him tremendously unhappy. So he has a conscience. But anyway, we get that discussion there with Levin and Oblonsky. So it introduces their relationship. After Levin proposes to Kitty, who is Dolly's sister, Kitty Sherbatskaya, he loves her. He's besotted with her. And Kitty is probably also in love with him, but she feels that she can do better. Her mother has basically said that she should not be putting her hopes into someone like Levin because she can do better. So Kitty's following the kind of family diktats and hoping for an offer from Count Vronsky. So that's an interesting scene. Levin comes by, he proposes, she rejects him. Levin's like, as anyone would be after a rejection of a proposal. So he heads off and he goes to visit his brother. This is where I started taking notes on my handwritten pages. Levin feels bad that he's a waste of space after Kitty's rejection of him. He visits his brother Nikolai, who gets drunk. There's been a falling out between the three brothers, Nikolai Konstantin and Sergei Ivanich, who is the half-brother. Levin thinks of himself as loathsome and repellent, an insignificant person who is no earthly use to anyone. That's pretty sad, isn't it? But I mean, it's a natural way to feel after a rejection like that. Then we've got chapter 26. Levin goes home and immediately feels more chill. We get a really nice, cosy chapter here and in the next chapter as well, where Levin is reading his book by the fire, drinking tea. The study was slowly lit up by the candle that was brought in. Familiar details emerged. Deer antlers, bookshelves, the shiny stove with the vent that had long been in need of repair, his father's sofa, the big desk, an open book on the desk, a broken ashtray, a notebook with his handwriting. When he saw all this, he surrendered to a moment of doubt about whether he could create that new life he had been dreaming about during his journey home. It was as if all these traces of his life had grabbed hold of him and were saying, "No, you'll never get away from us or be any different, but you'll be just the same as you have always been, with your doubts and eternal dissatisfaction with yourself, your vain attempts to improve and your failures, and your eternal expectation of a happiness which can never possibly be granted to you." But that was just his possessions talking, while another voice in his heart was saying that he should not give in to the past and could make whatever he wished of himself. And heeding this voice, he went over to the corner where he had 2 heavy dumbbells and started doing lifting exercises, trying to instill some vigour into himself. Footsteps creaked outside the door. He hurriedly put down the dumbbells. I just love that scene, the way it's portrayed. He ruminates on family, and then it got me wondering, for Levin, is the choice of woman important, or is it simply a means to a family? Because Levin has the idea of family as being the most important thing for him. He wants children, and he wants them now. I think it does matter. I think he is a romantic. Hence the pain he feels at the rejection from Kitty. Chapter 28, we're back with Anna. She flushes when she thinks of Vronsky. But she's being honourable and she's leaving St. Petersburg early in order that she not bump into him again. So what came up before this was a ball. Anna goes to a ball and she dances with Vronsky and causes Kitty some angst because Kitty's hoping for a dance with Vronsky and she sees how well Anna and Vronsky are getting on. A bit of jealousy there, you know. But there are sparks when Anna dances with Vronsky. It's, you know, you can tell there's something between them. We don't know what it is. It's, you know, it's kind of telegraphing what's going to come. So the ball scene there, we've also got the ice rink scene, which I haven't mentioned, when Levin goes to see Kitty at the ice rink, and that's a beautiful scene. We get the idea of how much in love he is with Kitty at that ice rink scene. These are beautifully written scenes, actually. Very evocative. But now Anna's leaving. She has feelings for Vronsky. That's been made quite plain, and she's doing the honourable thing. She's going home to her husband and son because she's afraid of what she might do otherwise. So she gets on the train, and we get some beautiful prose describing Anna's train journey. And I've said it's all the more vivid for my having just watched Matt and Yulia's train journey to Yakutsk. So that's a couple that I watch. They do travel vlogs around Russia. And yeah, it's great content. So having just watched a journey on the Trans-Siberian through winter and then read this scene of Anna on the train, you know, I'm going to let the cat in the window. Right, Willow's going to make herself heard. That's what she does, and I can't let her out because my wife's in bed, so you're just going to have to put up with a bit of meowing. Sorry about that. In fact, she's coming to say hello. You coming? Just walk over my book, why don't you? Huh? Did I, in fact, highlight anything about the train journey? Yeah, it just says she can't, no wait a minute, that's not quite right. Yeah, there's a quotation about how she wants to live the lives of the characters she's reading about. So that's a description of Anna's character. She's reading a novel on the train and she finds herself loving life through these characters. She inhabits them. Life for her is something wonderful. And in the next chapter we learn that Vronsky is on the train. She doesn't find this out until they stop, as they do in Russia on long journeys. They stop at certain stations en route for 20 minutes, half an hour, and you can get off the train and you can stretch your legs and get coffee or whatever. So that's when she sees Vronsky and she's like, gulp. It says, Anna can't relax now. Quotation, you know that I am travelling to be where you are. I can't do otherwise. This is what Vronsky says to her when she asks him what he's doing on the train. So now she can't sleep. But the nervous tension for her is, quotes, joyous, searing and exciting. So she's lying on the train, or sitting on the train, that's not made clear, trying to sleep because it's probably an overnight train, and she can't, but that isn't a painful fact, that's a joyful fact. So she's probably thinking of Vronsky. Then we get to meet Anna's husband, Karenin, at the station for the first time. He's there to meet her off the train, and they say hello to one another. It seems a little bit, don't know, cold, perhaps is the word. And Vronsky comes over and says hello, and Anna's like, oh. It says Vronsky's composure and self-confidence now came up against the glacial self-confidence of Alexei Alexandrovich, Anna's husband, like a scythe on a stone. So this is the Rosamund Bartlett translation, by the way, that I'm reading. So that's a kind of juxtaposition of the two men, the two male figures in Anna's life, that they clash, their temperaments, their personalities, their characters are polar opposites. So we've got that meeting with Anna and her husband, which, as I said, is cold. She discusses her son with him, asks after Seryoja, and then her husband says, right, I'm going back to work. Why don't you go and see Countess Lydia Ivanovna, who's kind of the society woman in St. Petersburg, the woman with all the gossip. Because Lydia Ivanovna wants to know all the details of what went down between Stiva and Dolly and the reconciliation. They call her the Samovar, Lydia Ivanovna, because she's always getting excited and heated up about things. So a samovar is like a Russian tea making device with a kettle on top. So yeah, she kind of reminds me of Anna Pavlovna from War and Peace, the society woman who, you know, finger on the pulse, gossip and news and all that. Right, so chapter 32 says she doesn't need to tell her husband about Vronsky because nothing happened anyway. So she doesn't tell him about the ball and all that stuff. Chapter 33, we get Karenin's motto: no haste and no rest. He's what is he? He's officious, I suppose is a word you might use to describe him. Без поспешности и без отдыха. That's the Russian. No haste and no rest. And he doesn't believe that Oblonsky's adultery can be excused. So he's another traditional character. Doesn't believe in adultery. I mean, does that make you traditional? Conservative? Not sure. And then chapter 34, we get a discussion of the two categories of people in St. Petersburg. We've got the first category. One was the inferior category. Common, stupid, and above all, ridiculous people who believed that one man should live with one wife, to whom he should be married, that girls should be innocent, women modest, and men virile, abstemious, and steadfast, that one should raise children, earn one's daily bread, pay off debts, and other such nonsense. Nonsense, eh, Tolstoy? This was the old-fashioned, ridiculous category of people. But there was another category of real people, to which they all belonged, which required one to be, above all, elegant, attractive, generous, intrepid, good-humoured, ready to surrender to any passion without a blush, and laugh at everything else. So there we get basically a description of Karenin and Vronsky. Karenin is the first, Vronsky is the second. And then there's a line here where I've written lol, because they're talking about coffee, and there's a scene here where Vronsky's with his friends and they're chatting about this and that. It reminds me of the bear scene, or the party scene in War and Peace with Pierre and Kuragin and Dolokhov, you know, when they're having the big drinking session and they end up going off "Cactrisum" to the actresses, and then we get the story of the bear being tied to the policeman and all that. That's what this scene reminds me of here.
Послушай, я держу с тобой пари. Но завтра. А теперь мы едем к актрисам. Едем! Едем! Книжку с собой берем.
It says that the coffee never did get brewed, but splattered everybody, boiled over, and did precisely what was required of it, which was to provoke noise and laughter and spill onto the expensive carpet and the Baroness's dress. So that's what coffee is supposed to do. So that's us up to the end of part 1. So we've been introduced to all the main characters. We know about Steva's infidelity and his character. We know about Levin, his rejection of Kitty. We've got Karenin and Anna and Vronsky with that relationship. So there's a lot going on in the first part, a lot of introductions, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous. And I'll just say that I am enjoying this book so much. I don't know why I ended up DNFing it a few years ago. Maybe it was the translation I was reading, which I think was Pevear and Volokhonsky, which is this one here. I've got this in Kindle, so that's the one I'm using for highlights. I love these deluxe classics, by the way. Penguin Deluxe Classics. Such wonderful paper and text. But this one here, the Rosamund Bartlett, this is the Oxford World Classics hardcover edition, and it's a really nice book as well. Crisp text, smells good, not like the cloth-bound classics. So I'm enjoying it immensely. I'm looking forward to carrying on. I'll be reading a few more chapters to catch me up with the end of this month with Henry's read-along. So it's going to be a few weeks before I get to the end of part 2. But if you've read Anna Karenina, let me know down below. Tell me what you think of it. Let me just show you this beautiful Russian copy I have. This is volume 1 of a 2-volume set that I bought used in St Andrews when I was a student. Once belonged to R.H. Stevenson, 1949. And cost me £3.80 for the set.
Thank you very much for watching today. Please let me know.
Thank you, Willow.
Rate the last 2 chapters of Bleak House and how you enjoyed it, and I'll be back very soon with another Bleak video.
So that tells you what I've been listening to. Katie Lumsden talking about Bleak House. Another book I'm thoroughly enjoying at the moment. And it's nice to be reading Dickens and Tolstoy at the same time, I have to say. And also Dostoevsky, because I've got Crime and Punishment and Brothers Karamazov on the go. So I'm really immersing myself in 19th century literature and having the best time. Having a jolly old time, aren't we, Willow? So, yeah, stay tuned for the next one in my Anna Karenina read along. And now that I know I'm doing this, I'll be taking better notes and making more observations that hopefully you'll enjoy listening to. So, thanks for watching. See you later.